welcome to Model Mania, the show that compels everybody to recreate the world in miniature. And look at this. It doesn't get much more miniature than this. A fully working indoor helicopter. And today's pilot is Mr. Roy Lever. Roy, that is incredible.
It's incredible, but I can't talk to you while I'm doing it. It's such a difficult thing to fly.
Okay, well, we'll just keep it short
but
then.
Nevertheless,
it's
wonderful, brand new, and it does excite me a lot, because you can fly it around your bedroom. How about that for you, Kevin?
That was very good for me. You just need a big bedroom for me. Well, can you land the first? Go on,
here we go. Steady, coming in now, be careful. And almost there, but a little bit of up and down, there we go. And you can have it now.
Can I take it over now just to switch it off?
Right, you can fly around your bedroom.
Yeah. Wasn't that incredible? But you made it look really
well,
simple.
it was relatively easy, I just made it look difficult.
Trust me, flying model helicopters isn't easy at all. Even if you have a top teacher like Peter Christie and you've got the stabilizers on, you can see what a mess I made of my first helicopter lesson later in the show. But Peter's son, aerobatic champion pilot Mark Christie, will be showing us how it should be done and how different it is outbreak of Model Mania. The man with no less than 19 scale helicopters, Ken Gale, will be giving us a glimpse of his impressive collection. Now, before we start concentrating on the big stuff, Roy's got a nice little helicopter to show us. Now, tell us about this one, Roy.
Well, it's very, very simple, but it does work rather well, we hope, to show you in a minute. First of all, you take the propeller, this propeller bit there, and this is a stick of wood, and we just have a bit of film stuck on a frame. And we need to wind it up with this nice little device, which we count up to 34 normally. I don't know why we do that.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I'm not technical enough.
Right, okay.
So, these technical questions you should address to somebody else.
And this is one of the early models, isn't
This
it?
is a very early model, yes. I think Pontus the Pilot had this one. And all we have to do now is to hook that onto there, which is a bit difficult without my glasses. Okay. And then we should see whether it will fly. Yes, I think we should try it, don't you? We've tried everything else on this program, so there it goes. And up it goes. Isn't that beautiful? I couldn't do it better myself, and it lands perfectly and disappears to live another day.
Absolutely brilliant. Now, also coming up on today's show, we will be putting one of these together, and I'm told they're relatively easy to fly. Now, some people don't like to build from kits, but they like to design and build their own from scratch so they can make it look exactly like a real helicopter, and that is exactly what Mr. Ken Gale has done to all 19 of his. Take a look at this.
I'm fairly passionate about helicopters. I've probably got 18, 19 now. But of course, when you make a scale model helicopter from scratch, it tends to be your own personality. So I'm very reluctant to get rid of them. I probably put something like 8 or 9 months on each model. I don't buy kits, mainly because I think they're far too expensive. And most of them are probably not as scale as they should be. This is Airwolf. I originally built it about 1988. I pretty much did what Universal Studios did with the full-size one. I had a Bell 222 model, and I added the side sponsons and the guns and the jet exhaust. Took another mould off it and produced a mould in. It's got a slightly more powerful engine than most of the other helicopters, partly because it's aerobatic. Everybody's watched the TV series, they know it can loop and roll, so my model can loop and roll, which is unusual because most of my scale models fly around very sedately. It's just quite a heavy machine, so it's not affected by wind or gusts and things like that. So it's relatively easy to fly. It's one I like flying, particularly at displays. The kids love it, the retracting undercarriage, the wheels going up and down, and that's really all they want to see. Bell 47G, particularly a favourite of mine. It was the first aircraft that really introduced me to helicopters, and the Whirlybird series in the 50s and black and white television. Referred to as bubble and stick machines for fairly obvious reasons. You've got a bubble one end and a stick sticking out the back. They really are a minimalist aircraft. The very early ones were all like this because obviously the weight is a significant factor on any model, full size or model. And being an early machine that came out in the late 40s, were piston powered. The engines didn't produce that much power. It wasn't until the 60s that gas turbines started to get introduced to commercial helicopters, which totally transformed the market. This is the Model 206B Jet Ranger. The full size was one of the first to use gas turbines, and obviously the aircraft is much more compact, got a very streamlined body shape, and carries quite a few more passengers than the earlier one. I think probably the first film that extensively used models, particularly the model Jet Ranger, was the Bond film The Spy Who Loved Me. It was less expensive to crash models than it was to crash the full-size ones. Since then, of course, they're used on lots and lots of films and are becoming more and more sophisticated. Most model helicopters have got a flybar, which gives a dampening effect and makes them less susceptible to gusty conditions. We can always see these in the movies, so we know when they're using a model helicopter. Also, usually the exhaust comes out of the wrong place as well. Right, waiting for the computer to take over the speed control of the engine. Increasing pitch. And off. The twin rotor is not particularly difficult to fly. It's just very different. It's got an onboard computer which works out where all the controls have to be at any one moment, which makes my end quite easy because the standard controller works fine. There are two sets of basically the same mechanics that I use in the other models, except that the rear mechanics are turned back to front. So there's a drive shaft, carbon fibre drive shaft, that goes between the front set and the rear set, provides all the torque drive. Very light, very, very strong. Making the rear mechanics back to front automatically makes the rear rotor rotate in the opposite direction to the front one, contra-rotating, so you don't need a tail rotor to compensate for any torque. People think they're very difficult to fly, and it's always a good one at the show, because party piece is rearing up on its front end. It's the computer that flies it, and there is no doubt about that. It certainly makes it an everyday flying machine, and I fly it most weekends.
The Airwolf is the one for me. I would love to get behind those controls, but being a novice, got to keep it simple, and Roy is going to help us assemble one of those lovely indoor flying helicopters. Roy, where do we start with this thing?
Well, the first thing to do is to look at how it comes in the box. And we have the main components here, the drive motor and a little motor for the tail rotor, which we'll go into a little bit later. Here's the blade, and here's all the other components. Not many of them, really.
And it's nicely laid out as well.
Very nicely laid out,
stuff, yeah.
Everybody can see it.
Okay.
And of course, if we look here, this is how far we've got, having super-glued the plastic parts together, and we've only got to put on the rotor, probably the main component left. And that just snaps into place like this. And whenever I say that, it doesn't snap into place, but I think we've managed to do it. Like that. Quite a tight fit, of course, has to be, otherwise it would fly off. And now you can see it's fully floating. Okay. And all we have to do is to connect it up to the radio control, which is by these
two little holes there into there. Okay.
So we have our completed helicopter. Of course, we have to make him look nice by putting the nose on it. Alright?
Okay.
But apart from that, we need that off so we can see how the functions of the helicopter take place. Here's the main drive motor that we referred to earlier.
Sure.
And this one has a tail rotor motor rather than a mechanical means of driving the tail.
Normally they just have one motor.
They do indeed have the one motor and a belt drive or a shaft drive to the tail rotor to make it balance. This one, of course, is even cleverer having that motor because it has a little brain. I think we'll call it that. It's its receiver, so it receives the signal, and then we have two speed controllers mixed into this board here. One speed controller controls that motor, and the other speed controller is that motor. Right. They're already directly on the same board as the receiver, so it's very easy to use.
That's clever.
Very clever indeed. This is even cleverer, perhaps, in some respects. This bit is a gyro. Now, you all remember those rubber gyro tops, yeah? Well, it doesn't work anything like that, does it? So this is an electronic gyro, that's the reason. But that keeps the helicopter on the heading and makes it stable.
Right.
Very important if you're a beginner. Well, even if you're not a beginner. And the other bit, of course, which is helping this technology, it's very lightweight, is a lightweight battery. There it is. And we have mobile phones to thank for those. The enormous production of batteries required for mobile phones, people demand the use of them for a longer and longer time, so this has helped the helicopter fly for 5 minutes.
Okay, so you get one of these with the kit. Is it worth maybe getting another one as a spare?
Yes, it is. You should tackle your batteries anyway. You shouldn't use one battery forever and ever. And of course, the nice thing about this is it's an indoor flying machine, and there's very few of those.
So just to clear up, you can only use this indoors.
That is right. It's really an indoor. It's not designed to be disturbed outside weather. So even you could fly it around your bedroom when your girlfriend wants something new.
Right. Well, there it is. But like I said earlier, it's not just the building work that's tricky. Flying model helicopters is really difficult. Very soon you'll see how I got on, and then you'll see how it should be done. See you very soon on Model Mania. Welcome back to Model Mania, the show that recreates the world in miniature. And today we're looking at one of my favourite models, the helicopter. And Roy has been guiding us through how to build and explaining lots of things. But I love these. They're fiendishly difficult to fly, but hey, with a bit of practice. Okay, it wasn't me really flying the helicopter. That was Mark, Britain's #1 helicopter champion. And I'm off to meet the man who's taught him all he knows, is Dad Peter. Peter, nice to see you. He's not bad, your lad, is he?
He's not bad at all. He's been practicing hard.
Well, obviously you taught him all he knows. He taught you. How did it start?
Well, I had to do it the hard way. I had to teach myself. I was already flying airplanes since I was at school, and I'd sort of reached a sort of peak with radio-controlled aeroplanes, and the next logical stop was helicopters. They were a challenge, they're notoriously difficult things to fly.
Did you know that before that was going to be really difficult?
I had a fairly good idea, but I didn't realise just how much of a challenge it was going to be.
Okay, we'll talk us through a couple of the models that we've got here. Okay. That looks very early, that one.
This one's actually quite a vintage model. It's about 25 years old. That's actually my second ever helicopter. The nearest equivalent to that nowadays is the blue one there. That's what 25 years of development does for you.
Does that take the fun out of it, though, when you can just pick things off the shelf like that, rather than just put it together?
Pick it off the shelf. You still have to build it. It's a kit.
And have the kits changed in the way that you have to put them together? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like an aeroplane where there's an awful lot of gluing and sanding of wood. These are more like Meccano sets. You bolt them together. But there's still quite a lot of work involved in getting all the linkages free, making sure everything's connected up correctly, everything runs true and smooth. A lot of work in there.
And the one on the end?
That's a world-class competition machine. We've left it uncovered so you give you some idea of what's inside underneath these pretty canopies. It's a more sophisticated machine all round, and it's got a much more powerful engine in it.
I don't think I'll be trying that one out myself, you know what I mean? So we can't fly the little one out because there's too much breeze, but what about the electric one? Would that be good enough to fly outside?
Yeah, we can certainly fly that one outside today. That's not a problem. It's not really suitable for a beginner. A lot of people think electric models are good to learn on, but they're not. The batteries tend to be fairly heavy. So consequently, you have to build the model fairly light, which means it's fairly fragile as a consequence. Luckily, I can fly it in my back garden without annoying the neighbours, though.
Very handy. So that's not good enough for a beginner, which I am a beginner, and I'm sure the viewer would like to see me make a complete fool of myself. Do you have one lined up for me to break? I mean fly.
I'm sure we can find something for you somewhere.
Let's go. Okay, Pete, I'm ready.
Okay. If you look at the transmitter in front of you, you'll find you've got two sticks on it, and these are your main controls for the helicopter. The right-hand stick controls the main rotors and tilts them forward, backwards, and sideways. The left-hand stick, as you push it forward, it increases the power, opens the throttle, and this makes the helicopter rise up into the air. If you move it left and right, it makes the helicopter rotate on its axis, a bit like the rudder would on a boat.
Okay.
Now, when you get the helicopter in the air...
When?
When you get the helicopter... Oh, you'll get it in the air, don't worry. When you get the helicopter in the air, the air spills out underneath it like a giant invisible football.
Okay.
And your job, as the pilot, is to keep it balanced on the top of that invisible football. Now, you do that by juggling the sticks around forwards, backwards and sideways to try and keep the helicopter stationary, whilst at the same time adjusting the power and waggling the stick sideways to keep the nose pointed in line.
Is that all?
That's all.
What are those 4 red balls doing on the floor?
Just coming to those. We've had the foresight to put some training undercarriage on it for you to stop it tipping over. If you tip it over, you'll break the rotor blade. So we've put those on it to stop it, make it more difficult to tip over. It does make it wobble a bit more, but it's less likely you'll cause any
Save a
damage.
few pounds as well on the
It
helicopter.
could well do. The trick is initially not to let it get above knee height off the ground.
Okay.
If you get any higher than that,
Yeah.
you're going to be in trouble.
What's the scale? So if I get in trouble, what do you have to do?
Well, I have a little piece of cable here, and I'm going to connect your transmitter to mine, so that if you get into serious trouble, I can flick a switch and take over control, and hopefully I'll be able to save the helicopter.
What, like a co-pilot?
Sort of, yeah. Very good, keep going, you're doing very well there. Touch of right, Spike. Okay, I'm going to take it back there. I was a bit worried you were tipping it over a bit. That wasn't bad at all. I'm going to fetch it back over in front of us. Okay, sticks all back?
Stick back.
Okay, yours, there you go. Then a tad more and she'll be off. Okay, I've got it. I was just a bit worried you... Yeah. Well done! Well done! Well done! The only reason I took over then was because the nose had come up and she was in danger of slipping backwards into the ground.
Well, it sounds funny, but... it sounds funny, but the higher you have it up, the more you feel like you can try and position it. Does that sound silly or not?
No, because when it's close to the ground, every little undulation in the ground affects it slightly and upsets the balance. And the further you get away from the ground, full-flight pilots call it ground effect. The further you get away from the ground, the helicopter's running in clean air and not in turbulent air where it's bouncing up off the ground again, and they become more stable. That's it.
Well, not bad for a beginner, I thought. Well, I've just got my head around the sticks, but of course there's all the radio control frequencies that you need to know about. And trust me, if you're flying model helicopters, it is essential to know them. Isn't that right, Roy?
Absolutely right. You've been trying with the right questions.
Lovely. Now, I've got a few questions for you. Right? The first one is, I've got my transmitter here. How do I get the information from here up to my helicopter in the sky?
It's almost like magic. An electromagnetic wave is sent from your aerial, but you can't see it.
Right.
And somewhere up there, your helicopter is looking for that electromagnetic wave. And when it finds it, you're able to control it. Now, of course, because for this program you can't see anything, we've got a very old transmitter here.
Right.
In fact, it's so old, it's older than me, and nothing's older than me. And this consists of a coil, just the same as the transmitter, an oscillator, which is this little bit here, and obviously an aerial. Although the aerial here has got two components to it, it still works the same way. I'm going to switch it on, and you'll see a series of pulses, of sparks occur, I hope. Here we go. You can clearly see that is going to the top of the aerial and transmitting out into space.
Right.
The oscillator can be tuned.
I see. So when I switch my transmitter on, that's exactly what's happening.
Exactly
what's
what's
happening. You can't see it.
No, we can't see it because we're in a different spectrum. But basically that's the function of all transmitters.
Okay.
And of course the receiver receives those pulses and activates the helicopter to crash, or whatever, fly.
To fly.
Sorry.
Right, that is clear now. That is radio frequency. So when I've been at these model shows, Roy, people are on different frequencies all the time, aren't they?
They're on different parts of the band.
Right, so how does that work?
Well, this is a beautiful computer system here which can demonstrate to us the first transmitter I've just switched on should appear here as a red line in a moment. There it is.
Right.
So we can see that. Here's another transmitter on another part of the band, and you'll see that occur, and the third one coming on any moment now.
So all those lines across there is the band, which is 35
It is indeed
megahertz.
35 megahertz.
Right, okay.
And each one of those is given a number. You can see it on this particular flag. It says it's on 63, and we can confirm it is on 63.
So you can tell what frequencies are available for models coming in.
Everybody will have a separate one flying in
So just to recap, then the band's 35, so each one is like 35.1 or 35.2 or
10
so on.
kilohertz. We've got the band up into kilohertz,
Right.
and each one is 10 kilohertz away from the other.
Okay, that is clear. One more thing, right? My helicopter can do loads of things. It can go up in the sky, it can go backwards, it can go upside down. There's several functions here, but I've only got one frequency.
That's right. And here on the spectrum analyzer, you can see that frequency, and you can see the pulses in between. And those pulses are numbers. Just like on your numbered bank account, you put your PIN number in, then it does the same thing in the transmitter. We put those numbers into the frequency, and that tells you helicopter on 1 to elevate, or to turn to the right or left.
And it doesn't matter how many functions I've got, whether it's 5 or it's 10.
Certainly up to 20 functions is no problem.
Lovely, that is excellent, Roy. Thank you very much, sir.
It didn't hurt a bit.
It didn't mega hurt.
That's wonderful.
Thank you today, Roy.
Very well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, we couldn't leave you without showing you how spectacular a helicopter looks, particularly when it's in the hands of European aerobatic champion Mark Christie. Enjoy this, and we'll see you next time on Model Mania.
After you've mastered hovering the model around, probably the hardest thing to do next is turn the model round towards yourself so that it is nose in like that.
Right.
Because here, now the controls to me are reversed, so when I pull the stick back, instead of the model coming towards me, it will go away from me.
If you think about this, it doesn't even look easy. You know, some things look easy. It doesn't look easy.
It isn't easy, but it's not impossible. It's like riding a bike. Once you've mastered it, you never forget it, and it's always there, and it's just a knack you've got to get.
But you specialise in aerobatics, don't you?
Well, for the competitions, you need to do both. You need to do precision hovering over flags and also aerobatics. You can't get away with just doing one thing. Now we'll combine the roll with a stool turn.
Roll and a stool turn. Oh. Pirouette, upside down pirouette that works well. Nice.
There's now the clutches drop down, there's no power going to any of the blades.
Now you know why he's British champion.
So we've done cars, boats, helicopters. Anything we've missed? Of course, submarines. Half an hour more of Model Mania after the break then, and that's your lot.